Hey, everybody, this is Brett Ingram, and this is the optYOUmize podcast, the show that helps entrepreneurs build their dream business and dream life. Today, we're talking with Jordan Mendoza, author, keynote speaker, podcast host, and founder and CEO of Blaze Your Own Trail Consulting, where he helps service providers grow their business through strategic marketing, sales, and leadership consulting. I'm thrilled to have him with us today because he's such an amazing story and is such an inspiration. So, with that, welcome, Jordan, and thanks for joining us.
Hey, thanks so much, Brett. Anytime I can come on a show and hopefully add value to the audience, that's what I'm all about. So I appreciate the opportunity to share.
That's awesome. Yeah, they're going to be blown away. Just the little that I know. I mean, I have a lot of questions I want to ask anyway, but I know that they're going to be thrilled about it as well. So, I know that you have obviously incredible tips for growing a social following and building a business, and we're going to get to all that stuff. But I have to start off by asking you, if you don't mind sharing, about your mom. Can you tell us her story and how that affected you growing up?
Yeah. No, and I appreciate the access there. I mean, my mom is, even though she's no longer with us today, she's still the biggest inspiration in my life. And when I really think about her story and her journey, it's really what opened up my eyes to realizing I had my own. When she passed away, that's when I started really sharing her story, and it encouraged me to start sharing my own. And so she was a woman that was born in the 50s with just one lung. And back in the 50s, when that happened, the doctors looked at my grandmother and they said, she's not going to live to be 18. She's definitely
Right?
not going to be able to have kids just because of the capacity that would have on her body. And, my mom had other plans. She was a fighter. She had my oldest brother, David, in 1979, and had me just a couple years later. Ended up having 5 boys and living to 54 years old. And some of the lessons that she taught me, in the short 31 years of life that we got to spend together was, don't be a victim of your circumstances. Even though she had oxygen and she sometimes would have a tracheotomy and I'd have to write notes to her in the hospital, she never was a victim of that. She always, showed us how to be kind, how to have a positive mindset. And she believed in us, and she told us that we could do whatever we set our minds to. And for some reason, for me, I believed her, and she's somebody that instilled confidence in me, and even in times when I wasn't confident in myself. And so she's definitely a big inspiration in my life. And just watching the adversity that she went through, I really don't feel like all the adversity I've faced in my short 43 years on this planet that I've even faced adversity at. And your audience is going to get some insights into some of the things I've been through. And so she's just a testament of somebody that showed me what's possible. Even though you may get a hand of jokers, you can still turn it into a full house if you're willing to do that.
That's amazing. And I love the fact that, for you, it was somebody that had the faith to believe in you first. And that's what gave you the faith to believe in yourself. And I think a lot of us find ourselves in that situation where, we might want to do something, or we might want to try something, or try to accomplish something, but we're a little insecure about it. We don't know. And then if somebody just can put their hand on your shoulder and basically say, listen, you got this, like you can do this. I believe in you. I know, the value that you have inside you. And that can go a long way to inspire people and literally, change people's lives. So that's super powerful. Thanks for sharing that.
My pleasure. And I agree with that. Having someone believe in you it's incredible. And I've been fortunate to have a lot of people in my corner, even times when I probably didn't deserve it. I probably didn't deserve to have people betting on me, but I still had people encouraging me and telling me that I could do it.
That's awesome. It's really awesome. I know, sort of, for you, that was just the start of the journey. Then you had other issues growing up as well. I mean, I think you got stung by 53 bees or something when you were in fourth grade. You got beaten and falsely arrested by the police at 12. And you also survived a horrific high-speed accident at 19. How were you able to overcome all of those things, not be cynical or defeated or feel as though the world was against you? and still
Yeah.
have such a drive for success despite all of that?
Yeah, such a great question. And, a lot of it, I think, I attribute it to my mom. It was just that, maintaining positivity. When I was stung in fourth grade by 53 bees, we were at the fourth grade picnic and, we were playing some sports that are now considered illegal, like tetherball, kickball, baseball, all the different sports. And this is like a scene from a movie, Brett. I kid you not. I was up to bat. I had the bat and I swung and I missed and I spun in a circle and the bat flew under this big Douglas fir tree. And when I stood up, the beehive literally was on my head, like the ones that you see, like looks kind
Oh
of like the
my.
ones in the movie. And I remember just running and there was a trail of bees chasing me and their kids were running away, the teachers were running away. And so I learned a lot that day about situational awareness, about what people do in circumstances like this. Even teachers that were
Yep.
supposed to be there were running away. They were even afraid, and
Yep.
and then there was ones that decided to grab these big coolers and dump them on me and started picking the bees off me. And when I went to the doctor and they did kind of the tally, we got to 53. And man,
53.
if I was allergic, we definitely wouldn't be on this podcast. So,
Right.
it's definitely the grace of God there. And I also thought that I was immune afterwards. So I remember I'd go outside, I'd just try to grab bees, I'd let them walk on me. And then about a couple weeks later, I got stung in the eye by a yellow jacket. And I was like, okay, I'm not the bee man. So it was very short lived that I thought I had a superpower. But yeah, I
The
mean,
bee whisperer. Yeah.
the bee whisperer, yeah. But that was tough. And you think about the being 12, right? So I had seen my mom suffer. I had a
Yeah.
lot of this thing called empathy. I had a lot of this thing called compassion. It wasn't just my mom. I saw my great grandmother go from completely coherent to getting Alzheimer's and then getting cancer and then eventually passing away. So I had seen some really things that opened my eyes into thinking about something other than myself. And so at 12, I mean, this was a crazy situation. We had literally, so from birth to 14, just to give context, we moved probably 14 times.
Okay.
There's
Wow.
some people that are, my age that have only moved once or twice in their whole life. And so
Yeah.
I moved 14 times and I have no context on why. I'm sure we got evicted or kicked out or who knows what happened, but we moved 2 towns away when I was 12. I had to learn the public bus system because I had to take one public bus from one town. It stopped at a 7-Eleven convenience store. I'd wait there for about a half hour. And then that would get the next bus that would drop me off in front of my middle school. And this is at 12 years old. I'm like taking
Wow.
public transportation like a grown up. And so
Yeah.
one day I'm sitting there playing that game, and the game in front of me was Mortal Kombat 2. And I was playing Mortal Kombat 2. I literally did this every time I made this stop. I was playing the game. I hear the chimes of the 7-Eleven bell ring. And then I hear a man's voice say, "Hey, Daniel." And I just keep playing because I'm not Daniel. I'm Jordan. And
Yeah.
within about a minute, Brett, my body was lifted up in the air. I was thrown against the Terminator 2 pinball machine. I was punched in my sides and my ribs, thrown on the ground, and shoved in a cop car. And
Wow.
mind you, the lady in the store knew me. She's like, "That he is not a Daniel. That's Jordan. I know his mom." They said, "Shut up, lady, or we're gonna arrest you too." And they came
Wow.
out, and I kid you not, my only saving grace, I was literally handcuffed at 12. I mean, why you put a 12-year-old in handcuffs? First off, handcuffed. I had my London fog jacket on, and I remember pleading with the officer. My tears were coming down my face, and I was confessing, actually. I said, "Officer, I don't normally do my homework, okay? But I know I did my homework last night. If you would just reach in my right pocket, you will see my name is Jordan Mendoza." And for whatever reason, he said, "All right, let me just like appease this kid." He opens up the door, he reaches in that pocket, he pulls out this crumpled piece of paper. That's how I roll. And it said Jordan Mendoza on it. And I kid you not, he looked like he saw a ghost because he knew he screwed up. He knew he had the
Yeah.
wrong kid.
Yeah.
A, not Hispanic. Okay, so he screwed up there first. B, not a runaway. C, didn't hurt anybody, which they thought I was, assaulted somebody.
Right. Right.
And what happened in this whole situation is I had to go see psychiatrists. I had to go, they're showing me all these weird pictures, and I had to go through the court process. And at the end of the day, for me, I knew in my heart that these officers did not need their jobs. This is
Yeah.
not the field for them. So I just
Right.
said, "Hey, listen, as long as they don't have jobs as police officers, I'm fine. We can end this. And I remember my
Yeah.
mom saying, we could get a lot of money here. Like we're poor.
Yeah.
We could get a
Yeah.
lot of money. And for
Yeah.
some reason, there was something in me at 12 that just said, no, I don't want to do that. That's not what I want. And we squashed it. And
Wow.
we squashed it at that point, and they did lose their jobs. And I got a lot of valuable lessons. I learned that, even people sworn to protect and serve can make mistakes.
Yeah.
We're human. We have bad days, and this was in the 90s. I mean, this is not far after Rodney King and all that. So, I mean, there's a
Right.
lot of turmoil. I mean, you got to look at the landscape, and hindsight's always 2020. We can always kind of look back at a situation and see the lessons and see the things that we learn. But
Yeah.
definitely an impactful moment, but something that I look at and say, I'm glad it happened because it taught me some stuff. It
Yeah.
taught me how to be tough. I learned the toughness by the bee stings. I could get beaten too and still keep trucking, so
Yeah.
kind of showed some fortitude and some toughness there.
And I think, that in and of itself is a great lesson in that if we approach everything that we try or attempt or experience as a way to learn, develop, grow, whatever, it helps us adjust to things that happen that we don't want to have happen to us or that do happen to us. But it also helps us continually grow and evolve. And
Yes.
I think, it's, it was really sort of mature of you at that age to have that kind of understanding and realize, hey, I'm going to take lessons from this, even if they weren't things that I was set out to learn or had any intention of being involved in. Obviously, I wish it never happened, but because it did, I'm going to make the most of it and channel it into something positive. So that's awesome.
And then,
We
so
all,
do you want to talk about the 19? I guess I
yeah,
think
yeah,
there
yeah,
was
yeah,
some value.
yeah. The car crash,
So
definitely.
by this point, I've taken a couple beatings, literally, figuratively, however you want to look at it. So
Yeah,
I'm 19. When I finished high school, by the way, I knew college was not for me. I wasn't going to go get in debt on my accord or my parents, and they didn't have the money to pay for it. So I just said, hey, let me do what any normal person does after high school and go get a job in sales.
okay,
I'd had
yeah,
jobs in sales. My 14, I got my first job going door to door. I did telemarketing. I love communication. I just love talking to people. So I got a job. It brought me from Portland to Seattle, from Seattle to California. And while we were in California, we had this unique opportunity that we were going to open a satellite office out in New Jersey. And I was part of this team that got selected to do it. And just to give you context, our job was literally to go to businesses and go to doors and sell different products and services and talk to about 100 to 600 people a day. So that's what we were
okay,
we were doing, and we were going to go
wow,
open an outfit in New Jersey to do that. And so we, like the 18 to 25-year-old kids we were, we took the scenic route. We went down California through Arizona. We went to Vegas. We went up to Utah. We kind of zigzagged our way until we eventually made it into the state of Utah. Okay. And the reason
okay,
why Utah is significant is there was something that happened in Utah, which I'm going to explain in a minute, that was really life changing for me when I look through this lens. Okay. So after Utah, we make it in Wyoming. And in Wyoming, I fall asleep and I was in a Chevy King cab pickup truck. So it's one of those big trucks. Has the cab in the back, it's got the cab in the front. And we had boxes because we were moving. And I was sitting sideways and I did not have my seatbelt on. Okay. So I'm asleep. It's about 4 a.m. My buddy Jeremy's driving. He actually falls asleep as well. And when he woke up, he actually woke up, he overcorrects the wheel, and instead of hitting the brake, he hit the gas. So we got up to speeds of 70 miles an hour, and then the truck just flipped. Boom, boom. I remember yelling, holy crap, 3 times, and the truck landed. When the dust kind of cleared, I looked in front. Our buddy was gone. I mean, Jeremy was not even in the driver's seat. There was a big
wow,
hole in the windshield, and I got out, didn't even realize I was injured at the time. Freddie and Kara, my friends in the front, got out. The caravan of cars, we're all out. We're like looking for our buddy. Like, where the heck did he go?
yeah,
And we eventually find him 25 yards from where the truck stopped. And he literally stood up like a zombie, said something, and fell on the ground. And we were like, is he dead? Like, we don't know what's happening. And our
right,
saving grace is a few off-duty EMTs had just left a a conference in Colorado and seen the end of the accident. And so they showed up on scene, were able to life flight him to Casper. I was just kind of walking around. I started to feel a little woozy. I started smelling something really interesting, which was iron. And that was because I was losing pints of
Blood.
blood.
Yeah.
My right leg had a cut a fist deep. I had a 12-inch cut on my right leg that went around. I almost ended up losing that leg. And on my left leg, I had an 8-inch cut. They rushed me in for laser surgery. I woke up in the hospital. And when I woke up in that hospital, okay, this is where Utah becomes significant. In Utah, at a Walmart parking lot, me and my buddy Branderis, we almost got in a literal fist fight. And the fight was about who was going to sit in the cool truck. So when I woke up in that hospital bed, Brett, the first person I saw when I looked to my left was my buddy Branderis. And I looked him directly in the eyes and I said, I'm glad it was me. Because I thought in that moment, what if he would have been in that truck? What if he would have had a
Right.
seatbelt on? He would have died. Like, he would have been
Right.
gone. I
Right.
luckily, because I didn't, my body was able to shift in the turns, and I was able to move over to an area. And although I did get 52 staples and laser surgery and told I wouldn't walk again, I survived. And I looked
Yeah.
him in and I just said, I'm glad it was me. And that was such a powerful moment because I felt like, you know, I had been through this for me. Okay. Like,
Yeah.
this is something that I was put in this situation because God knew that I could handle it. Okay. I'd already been stung. I'd already been beaten. Like, what's another thing? Just throw it on me. Right. And so
Any electrocutions in there? Or no?
right. No, none of that. But you know, one really significant thing happened while I was sitting in that hospital bed and all my friends were gone. I was in recovery. I was drugged up on morphine. And this girl, the rooms were separated by dividers. I mean, we're talking about I-80, folks, one of the deadliest stretch of highways in the country. There's more fatalities per capita than I think any other stretch of highway because it's so desolate. And this
Yep.
girl, she literally kind of comes from the other section. She's got half a head. I can see her skull. She looks me in the face dead on and she says, "It's okay. You can still smile." And man, that just broke me in that moment. I was like, who the
Wow.
heck am I? Like, you
Yeah.
know, this girl's got half a head and I'm in my feelings because I got a little injury, you know? And so
Yeah.
that shifted my perspective and that kind of motivated me that when I was in that shower with the walker and I was just remembering and I was just living in my identity, which was you're an athlete. You played soccer for 12 years. You played baseball for 12 years. You were a break dancer. You're going to do that again, you know? And I had to
Yeah.
motivate myself and encourage myself that this was not going to be my life. And I went from walker to wheelchair to crutches and within a 6-month period made a full recovery. And
That's
I'm
incredible.
proud to say, Brett, at 43 years old, I'm still teaching breakdancing in my garage, you know?
That's awesome.
So, but
That's
yeah,
really
I
awesome.
really, you know, these stories for me is to just hopefully encourage people that you're going to deal with hard things in life.
Yeah.
The one thing I can guarantee your audience is they're going to face adversity.
Yeah.
And it's all about how do you react? How do you respond? And what are you going to do to move forward?
You know, it's funny because that's exactly the next question I was going to ask you. I wanted to ask you, basically what advice would you give? Because as you said, everybody's going to go through adversity. So it doesn't matter what your background is. It doesn't matter, how privileged you are, how unprivileged you are, whatever. The fact of the matter is we don't get from one end of life to the other without some struggle, without some trial and tribulation and challenge. And if we approach it the right way, it can make us stronger and sort of galvanize us against that, or we can let it beat us down. And I think you did a great job illustrating through your own experience, a really productive and positive way to handle that, and it's super empowering and inspirational. So thanks so much for sharing all of that
My
stuff.
pleasure.
So if we turn the page and we look a little bit at your career, so you were in a traditional career working for somebody else for 15 years. And then what prompted or inspired you to actually walk away from that? Like was there a moment or was it a gradual thing or
Yeah.
what was sort of the impetus there?
Man, what a wild career in property management. It's the career that I didn't know was going to happen and it just kind of fell in my lap, you know, and those are the best careers, you know, because I'd love to just share a quick story. So, you know,
Of course.
my wife and I, the year was 2005. It was early 2005. We just had our firstborn, who's now going to be 20. I can't believe I got a 20-year-old in December, and we were broke, man. We were living in my wife's grandmother's double wide trailer in Georgia. I was doing odd jobs for like construction stuff, which is not my thing, and I had to make a hard decision, and that was I called my dad, and just to give a little context, I didn't even meet my dad till I was 12 years old. Okay,
Okay.
now let's throw another wrench into the mix here, right? Didn't meet my dad till I was 12. My stepdad was an alcoholic. He was abusive back in the day, and I'm proud to say that he's now been sober for 30 years. Okay,
Awesome.
so people can change, relationships can be mended.
Yeah.
Okay, and so even though I met him at 12, we uh, went out to DC for a whole summer, learned about him, learned about the Philippines, which is where he's from, learned about his
Okay.
landscaping business, and he's taught me so much over the years about hard work, grit, determination, believing in yourself, similar to kind of what my mom taught. And I had to call him this day, and I remember saying to my dad, and I didn't really ever like asking for help. I just call it pride and ego, call it whatever you want. But I
Yeah.
called him and I said, Dad, you know, I know we just had our new son, and we're struggling here. Like, I need work, and we need a place to live. Is there any way we can come move in with you? And like the perfect Asian parent, he said, yes, you can come up and live with us for a month. He's like, you can work with me, and that's fine, but you got to find your own place in a month. And I was
Yeah.
like, okay, well, all right, well, let's do this. Like, we had an in, right? So we move up to DC, and literally almost a month to the day, he had to co-sign for our first apartment because we didn't have any credit. We had this
Right.
newborn, no credit, and
Right.
now I'm doing landscaping for 12 hours a day with my dad and his company, and I'm running a crew of 5 guys, and we're doing 35 houses a day, and in the DC spring and summer, and winter hit. Guess what doesn't grow in DC in the winter,
Yeah.
folks?
No
Grass.
grass.
So I was back to square one. I had to get another job again. And so, like the sales guy I am, I opened up the newspaper, which most people don't read anymore, and I found a sales job selling windows. Now, let me just explain something to you guys. I can sell anything. I'm pretty confident. But Windows was not my thing because I'm not a handyman. I don't measure stuff. I had to have like a tape measure. I remember I was in people's homes trying to measure. I'm sure I got the measurements wrong, and
That's
I
close
I, I
enough.
sold like
Yeah.
15,000 in Windows on in one sale, and I was just like, I hope that this actually works out for these people because I don't really know that I did my job properly. But that didn't last very well, and one day I was in the office where we were living, and I was going to get a package. And every time I went to the office, I would always talk to everybody. I just loved talking to everybody. I would wave at them. I would smile. And they said, listen, you're always so positive. Like, have you ever thought about doing leasing? And I said, no, what's that? And they said, well, you know how we took you and we showed you your apartment and we toured you and you ended up signing some paperwork and you paid a deposit and then you moved in? That would be your job. And I said, cool. Do you have benefits? Because a little caveat, about a week earlier, we took our son, our newborn, to the doctor. He
Okay.
spent 30 minutes in the like area where everyone is. We spent 30 minutes in the little room, and the doctor came in for 5, and we got handed a $600 bill. And
I
I
know.
said, this
I
math
know
is
that.
not mathing. Like, we
Yeah.
need benefits. That's literally half of our monthly payment for rent. Like, we
Yeah.
cannot continue. And so she
Yeah.
said, yes, we do. And I applied immediately. And so when I got that job, it was crazy because, again, I'm going into an industry I didn't know. I knew about apartments. I'd lived in them. I've been evicted from them, all of that. That's what I knew about apartments, but I had no
Right.
idea about the industry. And that, my friend, started a 15-year career in property management. And within
Wow.
6 months of starting, I got a promotion to be an assistant manager. 9 months after that, I got promotion to be a property manager where I was now managing multi-million-dollar buildings. I did that for 5 years on site. And then I got a promotion into training and development where now I worked in a corporate office and I got to teach and coach and train people all over the country on sales, on marketing, on leadership. I taught a 6-month leadership program. I got certified in Myers-Briggs. I got certified in sales enablement as an advanced instructor. And it was really when I was in the prime of teaching this leadership program that something just clicked for me. And I was starting to see the impact I was having on people in a 6-month period. I was
Right.
coaching people every week, and then they were part of a cohort, and it was predicated on MBTI, and I just started seeing these epiphanies happening in my ability to coach and teach. And this wasn't new to me. I'd been doing sales training and coaching for a long time, but just not in a corporate setting. And so
Right.
I did that for about 3 years, and I started to realize that after each cohort graduated, the feedback from the attendees was, my life was changed. My relationships are better at home. I'm such a better person now. I've actually got another promotion. And I just said, man, that feels great. Like
Yeah.
having a positive impact on people, like that's my jam. That's what I love to do. I love to see people grow. And I started to think, like, am I going to be able to do that only for 15 or 20 people a year? Like, is that what I'm called to do? And it was about that time in 2019 when I got a goal from my boss, and he said, "Hey, we want you to find a social media platform we can get our associates engaged in." And that's kind of when I stumbled on LinkedIn, and I posted a
Okay.
video. It was my first video. I got 5 views. All of them were me because I kept going and rewatching it. And I was really just trying to find out what social media platform we could get our associates on. And for whatever reason, I got the courage to post a second video. And this time I said, let me not ask a question, but let me actually just give some tips that I teach my students in corporate, and let's see if people like it. And fast forward, I think at that moment in April of 2019, I had 7,000 connections or followers. By December, I had amassed an audience of 20,000 followers, and I was
Wow.
like, "Holy cow! Like, where did all these people come from?" And people started reaching out and saying, "Hey, can you help me with my LinkedIn profile?" And I was like, "Sure, let me do that." And can you help me? And can you help me? And it was actually my wife. She started saying, like, "You're helping a lot of people. Are these people paying you?" And I was like, "I got a plan. I'm going to teach people
Yeah.
for free. I'm going to give them a bunch of value. Then they're going to give me a testimonial, and that's going to help bring me people." And that's what happened. It took longer than my wife would have liked, I think, but
It always does.
that's kind of how it was all born.
That's awesome. That's really awesome. So, what advice would you have if somebody's out there and they're looking to make the switch? They're in a corporate job or they're in another kind of a career and they're
Yeah.
thinking about becoming an entrepreneur. Are there
Yes.
particular tips or tip or advice that you have for that?
Yeah, I would say take a similar path that I did, and that is, you got to start diving into you. You got to start taking an introspective look at you. You got to know what your personality is. You got to know what your strengths are. You got to know where your EQ stands. What's your emotional intelligence level? Okay, and by taking assessments that dive into that introspective look at yourself, it
Hmm.
actually helps you understand others better. And when you can understand others better, it helps you in relationships. It helps you with your clients. It helps you in your corporate job or the business that you want to have. And so, my advice is invest in you. Okay, because you have to understand you and understand as much of you as you can. And it's an ever growing thing. Like, we're probably never going to completely understand ourselves, but the more that we can dive into that, that's going to help you make decisions. Because if you understand your strengths, now I can say, "Hey, you know what? I am excellent at X. Let me start becoming a practitioner at X." And then you start doing what I did. You can help people. Just say, "Hey, listen, I want some case studies. I'm thinking about doing this. I'd love to help you and coach you for a few weeks. Would you be open to that? The only thing I ask is that you give me a video testimonial uh, with your feedback, the good, the bad, and the ugly, right?" And
Yeah.
that is going to help get you some social proof and some credibility that you can deliver on whatever it is that you're trying to deliver on.
That's awesome. Yeah, and I think one of the things that I've seen with people, and when people ask me about being an entrepreneur or what field to go into and everything else, one of the mistakes that I see people do is they look for where they think there's opportunity or money, and they try to chase that. And I always bring it back to actually a job that I had. I was in staffing for years, and I'll never forget the day that I knew I wasn't meant to be in staffing because I was actually reasonably good at it. I didn't love it, but I was reasonably good. So I come into the office one morning and my boss is in there. She was the owner and she had been in there since like hours before me and she was there late last night. She comes over to me and she starts talking to me and she's got all this passion. She had been on the phone with this client last night. She was in the office till 8 o'clock. she just knew that like she found the right job for them and they didn't understand. And for her, it had nothing to do with the money. She was so passionate and driven about making sure this person got into the right job. And I thought to myself at the moment, if I'm not her, I'm competing against her. And while we work at the same company, I don't live this and breathe this the way she does. So she's always going to beat me. I can learn whatever skills, I can do whatever refinement of my technique, I can learn rebuttals, it's not going to matter. She has this passion that comes from inside that makes her excellent at it because it's authentic and it's infectious. And I didn't have that for that particular thing. And so the advice that I always give is, follow your passion. And as you had said, identify what you're really good at and what gets you excited and what you have a natural talent in and go in that direction, because you can worry about how to monetize that later. But if you're in a place where you love what you do because of what it is, then you're naturally going to be better at it, naturally going to be more committed at it, and probably going to be able to be successful that way as well financially. So that's a great story and a great lesson, I think. So one of the things that you did with LinkedIn is, I know you were able to grow your followers quite a bit, but didn't you also launch, grow, and monetize a newsletter there as well?
Yeah.
And
So
is that something that anybody could do, or is
Oh,
that, or
100%. And actually, I have a whole workshop on that, and I'll send you the link if you want to, give that to your listeners. And one of the things that I always love to do is just give value to your listeners. So anyone that hears this, if you got value and you're saying, hey, you know what, Brett said LinkedIn has newsletters, I want to learn how to do this. All you got to do is, and I'll get Brett the link, but if you use code BLAZE, it'll actually give you 50% off of that workshop where I literally teach in an hour how to launch, grow, and monetize a LinkedIn newsletter. But yeah, so thank you for the opportunity to share about
of
newsletters,
course?
because they're so cool, man. I mean, was about 16 months ago I launched mine, and we're now over 18,000 subscribers to the newsletter.
Wow.
And what's really powerful about it is every week now we're publishing, so we get in front of almost 20,000 people, potential people a week. And what's interesting about LinkedIn is it not only goes to their LinkedIn inbox, but it also goes into their email inbox. So you actually get to kind of double dip from a deliverability standpoint. And these newsletters rank in Google. They're evergreen,
Wow.
and as long as LinkedIn doesn't go away, you can still find these on Google. And I've been teaching so many of my clients on how to do this. And one of my clients, in fact, we just launched her newsletter in March, and it's June 7th. We're already over 3,400 subscribers in just a
That's
handful of months.
amazing.
And so it's something that can grow pretty quickly as long as you have the right strategy. It definitely, you have
Yeah.
to have the right strategy in place. And that's exactly what I teach in that workshop.
That's amazing. I mean, yeah, LinkedIn for me, I was never that big into the socials, so I wasn't even aware that you could do a newsletter through there, but that's really awesome. So I know that you also currently host a podcast called Blaze Your Own Trail Podcast, which everybody can find at byotpod.com. Can you tell us why you started that and what that's all about?
Yeah. So I started the show. I'm going to give you a date, and everyone should remember this date. It was January 1st, 2020. So started it, the year of the pandemic, had no clue the pandemic was going to come. But
Right?
honestly, it was a blessing for the show because I was able to access people that I probably wouldn't have been able to access otherwise, because everybody was where? We were all at home. And so if I wanted to get high net worth individuals, athletes, authors on podcasts, they were doing nothing else. So it was pretty easy to launch a show then. And so I really capitalized on that fact. But the reason I launched the show is my first podcast in 2019, I think I launched in May of 2019, failed. Okay, I
Okay.
think I had 2 episodes. I'm the only one that ever heard them, and the reason it failed is I didn't have any clarity around the why. What was my
Yeah.
why going to be? And so when I launched Blaze Your Own Trail, I grew up in Portland, Oregon. So my hometown team is the Portland
We're the
Trailblazers, right?
trailblazers.
So I was able to kind of tie in my hometown team with my love for trailblazers. I've always had a thing for people that have been disruptors. They've gone against the status quo, people like Rosa Parks and people like Abraham Lincoln and Martin Luther King, and these people that were just blazing trails, Lewis and Clark, for example, the
Right.
Oregon Trail they blazed. And so I said, man, how cool would it be to not only interview people that have blazed their own trail, but as I started to kind of build up my prowess, be able to help people along their trails through things that I've been through on my trail, right? Through solo episodes. And that's kind of how the show was born. And what's really amazing about this little thing I started while I was still in corporate is now you fast forward 4.5 years later, we're up in the top 2% for entrepreneurship. We've got listeners in 70 something countries. And it's just such an awesome thing. And I just signed to an agency recently. And so we're bringing on sponsors. And it's just so crazy what can happen, in just a short 4.5 years, 5 years almost of consistency and showing up and putting yourself out there. Because again, podcasting, as you know, being a host yourself, there's a lot that goes into it. There's a lot of labor of love. There's a lot of, time and energy and effort. And sometimes it can feel like no one's listening. Right. And you can feel like that. So, kudos to you, for sticking with your show and having it. But I just want to encourage people, if you want to start a show, my best advice is I just wrote a newsletter article, and it's called So You Want to Start a Podcast, right? And this is going to basically break down my story, my journey, my tips. And I almost kind of talk you out of it a little bit, just because I
Yeah.
think it's warranted, that
Uh-huh.
because you got to know what you're getting yourself into. I mean, it takes a
Yeah.
lot of hours, a lot of energy, and it is a craft that you have got to hone and get
Yes.
better at over time. I think that my public speaking skills have exponentially increased this 4.5 years of podcasting, because
Yeah.
I have to be able to enunciate, be able to communicate. I've got to be able to have dialogue back and forth. And most of the people like us, we hadn't met before I popped up on your screen, right? And so,
Right.
how
That's
do
right.
you basically go from meeting somebody to trying to build a relationship as quickly as you can? And podcasting is one of the best ways to do it if you're willing to invest.
Yeah. Yeah, no, absolutely. And that's, I've looked at it the same way. When I started out, I didn't necessarily have an end goal in mind other than I wanted to be a voice for other entrepreneurs and be the mentor that I never had, because I know how lonely it can be, how challenging it can be sometimes, and how isolating. And so when there's somebody else there that has been there and has gone through it, and they're offering you tips and advice and encouragement, I felt like that was something that would have benefited me along the way. So if I could share mistakes I've made and help other people avoid those so they can get to where they're going faster, then all the better, right? So absolutely. So you're obviously all in on social media. You're very successful using it. If somebody wants to leverage social media for their business, but they don't have a lot of experience, they don't have a big following yet, what do you recommend they do?
Yeah, I say find a mentor, find a coach, find somebody that's been there, that's done it, that is a practitioner of it. That's what I would say. And I actually make this convenient for people, and I'd love to even give. I know I gave you a code, and that's great, and we'll make sure we get that for your audience. But if you're listening to this episode and you can hear the sound of my voice, and maybe you're the person that Brett is speaking about, you're on it, maybe you use it, and maybe it's not really panning out to what you thought the results were going to be. Every Friday at 1 Eastern, in fact, in about 20 minutes from now, I do group coaching, and I have students from all over the world. I want to give Brett, and I've never done this on a podcast, so this will be your first audience that gets this, but I want to
Awesome.
invite any listener that wants to grow on social to a free 1 week preview. Okay, you'll get to come in, you'll get to meet me, you'll get to meet the other students, you'll get to give an intro yourself and your business, and you'll get to see, is this a community that I want to learn from? Is this a place that I can see myself growing? And if at the end of that week you say, hey, that was great, but I'm good, then it was nice to see you, and best of luck. If you say, you know what, this is somewhere I think that can help me, and we do other things besides content. I bring in other expert guest speakers, people that have been on my show, and my goal is to add as much value as I can to help you blaze your trail. So I want to just extend a free 1 week visit. Okay, so that'll be for anybody. I'll make sure that I connect with Brett, give him the info on how to get that distributed.
That's awesome. Really appreciate that. So, in addition to all the other stuff that you do, You also have Blaze Your Own Trail Consulting. I imagine all these services are sort of under that umbrella.
That's it.
Is there something specific, like who is your ideal client, and what's sort of the holistic idea of services that you provide?
Yeah, so I mean, we kind of do it all. We're kind of like a full service agency at this point. So we help our clients with everything from systems and processes, so CRMs, calendar systems, funnels, that type of stuff, and then we help with coaching on social media, end to end, from optimization to content strategy to growth strategy to monetization. We also have done for you social media services for people that are just, they're like, hey, I know I need to show up. I've got a budget, but I'm too busy. We actually offer done for you services where we actually manage those accounts for our clients. So we really help in all different capacities, just because we know that if you're blazing a trail, you're going to be at this part of the trail one day, another day you're going to be over here. And so depending on where you are in your journey from startup to scale up, we have services that can help. And the interesting thing is we don't just help on LinkedIn. LinkedIn is our bread and butter. It's a place that, the playground I've been playing in for the last 6-7 years. But we coach in the weekly coaching. Like today's session is all about TikTok. And so I was fortunate to get verified on TikTok a few years ago. So I'm going to teach my
Nice.
students, here's the process that I went through. Here's what you can do to get there. I'm going to teach them how to optimize their accounts. I'm going to teach them how to leverage the different tools that you can use and features and which type of accounts they should have. And so again, that's just kind of a preview of other things that I help with outside of LinkedIn. And so Instagram, Facebook, YouTube. If it's a social platform that I've personally built an audience, then I want to help my clients with it as well.
Makes total sense. So, where would people find you if they want more information? They want to connect with you. They want to work with you. Is it mostly your website? Should they go to your LinkedIn profile? Where are the best places to find you?
Let's make it super easy. You can so my Instagram is at the real Jordan J Mendoza. And all you got to do is just send me a DM and just say, hey, I heard you on Brett's podcast. And, I will set up a call, a virtual coffee, if you want to just meet with me, if you have questions about the show, or maybe you've got questions about your business. I'll set up a call with anybody and just see if I can help. Sometimes I can't. And I have a big referral network where I can refer you to folks that I know, because I'm not the best fit for everybody.
Sure.
Because I don't do paid ads. So everything I do is I teach organic strategies. So if you're looking for paid ads, then I'd just refer you to someone in my network that does that. If you're looking for how to do something that I don't do, then I just refer you out. But if I can help you, then of course I'll resource you, I'll guide you, I'll see which part of your journey you're on, and which place to kind of compartmentalize you to make sure that you're getting to success.
Awesome. That makes total sense. So, okay, my last question that I always ask is, what do you think the biggest key to success is for entrepreneurs?
Not giving up.
I mean, right?
That's it,
Yeah,
right? As long
yeah.
as you don't give up, you haven't failed. And the other thing
Keep
I would
swinging.
say, what I'd love to leave your audience with is just a quick quote, okay? And and the goal with this quote is to help just kind of shift your perspective a little bit, all right? And so here's what the quote is. It's, the struggle might be real, but the good news is that every struggle has a free gift called a lesson, okay? And as long as you can extract the lessons, it's not a failure. Okay.
I
Okay.
love that.
Does that make
Yeah,
sense? So hopefully
that's
that's
awesome.
helpful. Listen, Brett, I want to just say you did a great job. I don't know, how many podcast interviews you've done, but you did a phenomenal job, and I just want to honor you for what you do. I know how much it goes into being a podcast host, and I really truly appreciate the opportunity to share.
Oh, thank you so much. Yeah, so I mean, I love the opportunity to showcase other people and learn from them. So anytime I have an opportunity to connect is always awesome. So with that, it's just about time to wrap things up. Thank you again, Jordan, for sharing all your insights and great tips with us. Again, you can go to byotpod.com to find his podcast and consulting services to grow your business using social media. You can also find him on LinkedIn at Jordan J. Mendoza. Thanks for tuning in. And as always, remember, no matter what you want for your business and your life, don't compromise, optimize.